Hello, my name is Megan Raymond. I'm the Manager of Programs and Events here at WCET. Just quickly, can everybody hear me all right? If you could put a note in the chat box. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful webcast on promoting a culture of accessibility for online students. Well, terrific. Looks like you all know how to use the chat box, so this is going to be a fun and engaging session. Thank you to Blackboard Collaborate for making the platform available for all of us. If you have any technical issues, please contact Blackboard directly. And as we go along today, as you noticed, you'll be using the chat box to interact with us. So feel free to put any questions, comments, or share resources in the chat box. The speakers are the only participants today that do have access to the mic. We'll also be following along in that chat box and pulling out questions so we can share ththose questions during the Q&A portion. The webcast is being recorded. I'll send a link to the archive, the PowerPoint presentation, and any resources that are shared. As you have questions, go ahead and enter them into the chat box and we'll get to them at the end of each portion. And I also wanted to mention that we will be doing 2 polls during this conversation today. So when the poll option comes up, you can just simply put in your poll response. So we'll have an A through D option and an A through E option. Feel free to play along with that so you're ready when it's time to do the actual poll question. Today our moderator is Callie Morrison. She's the Manager of Communications here at WCET. So I'd like to go ahead and pass it off to Callie.
Great, thank you Megan, and thank you all for joining us today. We have a great webcast in store for you. Today we welcome 3 instructional designers from the University of Central Florida, Kathleen Bastedo, John Raible, and Nancy Swenson, who have done amazing work in promoting a culture of accessibility for online students within their campus. So I'm going to turn it over now to Nancy, who will get us started.
Nancy, John, and Kathleen.
Sorry, I forgot to.
There you go. Just going to remind you.
Yes, John and Kathleen are reminding me as well. Sorry about that. We're going to start out, if you all don't mind, with a poll question. And the questions are on the screen. Do you have a campus-wide initiative to address online course material accessibility issues on your campus? The choices are A, yes, B, no, C, working on it, or D, do not know. If you could go ahead and answer that poll question.
If you'll answer using the poll function above the list of participants, then we'll be able to see an aggregated score of what people have answered.
I'm seeing those numbers rise very quickly. See, so far we have most people are saying C, working on it. We have a lot of people, kind of a tie between A and B. Oh, there we go. All right, can everyone see those poll results? All right, very good. So it looks like the majority of people are working on it, with a number of people saying they don't know. So we're going to be sharing today some of the things that we've been doing here at UCF to meet the needs of our students with disabilities taking online courses. And our initiative is both one within our unit and also one that we are working with other units within our university as well. So we'll be sharing lots of great information with you that we hope you can take back. All right, thank you for completing that poll question. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. All right, this slide is just an overview of what we're going to be talking about today. First of all, we're just going to talk about online learning at UCF, just a quick overview of that. The context of accessibility needs in terms of online learning at UCF. The accessibility support model that we've created to meet the needs of students with disabilities taking online courses. And also we're going to highlight a tool that has been created by people in our unit called UDOIT. And it's a tool that's created for Canvas. John's going to be talking about that, where faculty can check their courses on their own to see if they're accessible. And we'll be talking more about that a little bit later. All right, let's get started. First, let's talk a little bit about UCF and the Center for Distributed Learning. The three of us, as you heard, work at UCF. It's University of Central Florida, and we are the second largest university in the country. Believe it or not, I can't believe we are so large. We're already at almost 63,000 students this semester, and it continues to grow. The unit we work in is called the Center for Distributed Learning, and as was indicated earlier, we are all instructional designers here. Our unit is the central agent for online learning at UCF, and the main areas that we cover and work with are covered on this slide, and I'm going to go through them just very briefly. We work with the policy, planning, and standards, credentialing, and reporting of online courses, and online teaching and learning at UCF. We work with faculty development, course design, and course production. We also work with technical support, not only for faculty but for students. And also we have an area within our unit that assesses online teaching and learning here at UCF from both the student and faculty perspective. This slide talks about the growth here at UCF, not only in our enrollment, but the number of online courses at UCF. You'll notice this slide covers from 2010 and 2015. Enrollment in 2010 was over 56,000 students, with nearly half of those students taking at least one web or video-based course. And those students represented 21% of the overall student credit hours at UCF. And in the fall of 2015, our enrollment, as we said earlier, is almost 63,000, and 33,000 of those students take at least one web or video-based course, and that turns out to be 36% of all of UCF's student credit hours are generated online. Also, if you looked back over at the last academic year, the total student credit hours actually is 38%, but these numbers only represent the fall of 2015. This next slide shows you the percentage of students that are here at UCF. 2% of our overall student body are registered with the Office of Student Disability Services. So only 2% doesn't sound like a very large number, but I'm going to show you how much of an impact those 2% can have on the university and all of the courses here. So 98% of students are not registered with the Office of Student Disability Services. Oops, I keep clicking the down button instead of clicking the slide advance. Sorry about that. All right, the next slide is course section. Remember I talked about that 2%. Now notice these two numbers, 61% and 39%. That 2% now represents 39% of our overall course sections. This semester we have almost 7,000 course sections, and 39% of those have one or more students in them that are registered with the Office of Student Disability Services. So very significant. And even more impactful, I believe, is the amount of faculty that are impacted at the university. Now you'll notice that the number of students this semester that are teaching are almost 2,000, and 68% of those have a student, at least one or more students in their class that is registered with the Office of Student Disability Services. Do we have any questions so far from the audience?
I think you're good to keep moving.
You're good to keep moving. Okay. All right. So we're going to go on to another poll question. And that question is, who at your institution is responsible for creating accessible online materials when an accommodation is involved? A, the faculty member. B, the disability office. C, a distance learning department. D, combination of departments. Or E, other. Okay, please use the poll. Very good. Okay, so far D is the highest answer so far, combination of departments. And A, faculty member, that one's pretty high. All right, looks like D, the answer combination of departments. That is also true here at UCF, and we're going to be telling you more about that as we go through our presentation. That's very interesting. Thank you for completing that poll. This next slide represents something we don't want to see happen here at UCF. You'll notice in this cartoon, you'll see a student or a young girl in a wheelchair approaching a curb, and she cannot get across the street. She cannot, even think about getting across the street because her wheelchair would not be able to go across the curb there. And she's there talking to a gentleman, looks like maybe a foreman of a construction site, and he's saying, wait here, we'll have this done in just a jiffy. We just got to fill out an application, complete a survey, drop a plan, obtain a permit, determine the zoning requirements, and obtain a contractor. So needless to say, she's not going across the street anytime soon. And that's what we don't want to see happen with our students taking online courses. We want those courses to be ready for our students as soon as they arrive on the first day of classes. So that is our overall goal, so that we don't have this type of situation. Again, we work with a combination of departments to make that happen. One of the things we found a few years back when our growth of our online courses seemed to explode here at the university and our enrollment continues to grow, we learned very quickly that the face-to-face accommodations were very clear. We had very clear plan, very clear procedures for when a student needed accommodations. But more and more when it came to the online environment, how and by whom those procedures would happen was no longer clear. We had requests that were handled on a case-by-case basis. Kathleen, that's going to talk to you in a few minutes, and I would actually take calls at our desk because we have a very close relationship with our Student Accessibility Services Office. And they would call us and say, hey, we have somebody that needs XYZ assistance with this class. And Kathleen and I would kind of walk those requests through the department and get those handled. But we learned very quickly that we couldn't handle the amount of requests that were beginning to come in. Also, faculty, as our online initiative grew, were increasing the amount of multimedia elements in their courses, and more types of accommodations were needed for those. So we knew very quickly that we needed something more systematic. So what happened from that point when things, when we weren't clear, we realized things were not as clear as we wanted them to be, and we didn't want things to fall through the cracks. Some of our senior level administrators began to get together, and they identified key roles and responsibilities of different departments on our campus. And also one thing that has been key at our institution is each fall our provost sends out a letter to faculty, and that letter reminds faculty of their responsibility of making their courses accessible, but also identifies key resources for them to contact if they have any difficulties. And those key offices would be our office, Center for Distributed Learning, our Student Accessibility Services Office, as well as our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning. As we said, it's kind of a combination of people that help make these things possible. But while those senior level meetings were going on, we were working on this campus-wide initiative. At CDL, we were also researching what other people were doing. It's funny because Kathleen and I, not that long ago when we did this, we were calling institutions, we were checking websites of institutions that we knew that might be able to help us and asking them, how are you meeting the needs of students with disabilities taking online courses? How are you handling captioning? How are whatever the situation we were asking about at the time. But without fail, almost every single one of them said to us, well, we're great with face-to-face, but we really don't have anything. But as soon as you figure something out, let us know. So we weren't much different than anybody else that was out there at the time, but we were very surprised about that. But after we started doing that research, we started pulling together a group of people at our institution, or our unit, CDL, Center for Distributed Learning, called our Big Picture Group. And that group consisted of people across the unit that had some hand in accessibility within our unit. And also we identified a key person or a coordinator that oversaw all of our accessibility units. Because one of the things we found is there are a lot of people in our unit, I'm sure everyone wants to make things accessible and wants to play a part in that, but we had a lot of different initiatives going on within our unit, and we needed someone to coordinate them. And our coordinators helped that tremendously, and our big picture group that gets together periodically helps keep everyone on track and keeps everyone aware of what each other is doing. And we identified an internal workflow to help with those requests as they come in. And then as we were working through all of this, the Student Accessibility Services Office was consulted and involved throughout, because they're also very much a part of this initiative. All right, to tell you more about our initiative, we have Kathleen Bastedo. Am I going to switch seats? Okay, I guess we'll stop in when I get when I get going if you have any questions. Or if you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat area. So Nancy was talking about we had like a big picture meeting. We appointed someone to take over to kind of coordinate our efforts just within our department. And bless his heart, our coordinator came up with this model. We get some criticism because it looks so old, but we like it because we feel that it supports all of the things that we do here for accessibility. So the top part, the umbrella part, is accessibility, and then it's divided into universal. How long did it take you to ramp up with the efforts? Oh, she's saying don't answer. It took us, I would say, like a year, I think, to really get going and get everything in place that we needed. So we started with universal design for learning. We have proactive requests and immediate need, and those are the columns. I'm going to talk about each one individually. I'm going to start with universal design for learning. Is everyone out there familiar, or is anyone not familiar with universal design for learning? If you could enter, it's not a poll, but if you could enter it in the chat, either yes you are or no you're not. There are plenty of resources online that you could, there's a couple of no's. Okay. Mostly yes. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because you could actually do a whole workshop on universal design. But basically, it's a way to make, they have a lot of principles. You can go to the site. It's called CAST, C-A-S-T, and it's in our resources. And it's a way to make things not only accessible, but to meet the learning styles of different people. And when you do that, it kind of naturally makes things accessible as well. So I'm not going to go too much into that, but there are plenty of resources online, and we have them listed at the end as well. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about universal design. The one really nice thing about it is that it addresses the needs of diverse learners. We gave the example of ESOL. If you have English as a second language, you can read the captions. They do help you learn the words. And those aren't the only people that benefit. If you're in a loud environment and you can't play it, you have to do homework, you can use, you don't have headphones, you can read the captions. So there are a lot of benefits to it. One of the really good things is if you make your course from the beginning with universal design in mind, there is less time having to retrofit the course, meaning to go back and add captions or go back and add other things that make it accessible. I think the best thing about universal design is that it's in place before students ever access the materials. That saves a lot of time. You don't have to go back and redesign your course and add things and change things. It's really good. All students can just get in and start working. That's our big goal for universal design, but if you've already started working with it, you know it takes a while to do that. It's not something that you can do overnight. So one of the things that we started doing was we teach a course for our faculty at UCF. In order to teach online, they have to go through a course we call IDL 6543, and it's required before they can teach online here. We have added, Nancy and I have added an accessibility and universal design for learning model. In that we cover different principles. We cover different principles of universal design, how to make your courses accessible as you create them. We have course projects throughout IDL, and we've made sure that we address UDL and accessibility in those projects, so that it's kind of always in the background of the course instead of just in that one module that we wrote. We also have created, we don't use Quality Matters, but we created a module and course rubrics where we have peer reviews in the class. They get into groups and they look at, first they look at a module and then they look at the overall course. And accessibility and UDL are listed in those rubrics so that they're checked right away as they're building the courses. And then we also offer a separate accessibility check for course materials. So as part of the requirement for IDL, they have to create one module in order to pass. And then eventually finish the class. But when they have the one module done, we offer them a check where it's a manual check. We go in and we check their documents and their videos, and we make suggestions as to how they can make their courses more accessible. So that's done before they create the whole class. Other things that we provide are we have a website and we have links to creating accessible course content and accessibility tips, which is a variety of things. It could have, I think it has captioning there. It has how you create alternative text for an image that someone would need. If they couldn't see the image, they'd have to have something written so they knew what the image was. And honestly, there are tons of resources on the internet related to accessibility. And everything that we have here, this is specific to us, but there are just tons of resources out there. All you have to do is search for them. We also have some other course development strategies, such as an accessibility statement. We try to call it an accessibility statement rather than a disability statement. One of the things recently that happened was we had a Student Disability Services Office. They changed their name to Student Accessibility Services, which again kind of addresses that universal design. It may not only be someone with disability, but someone else might need access. We also provide strategies to make your course materials more accessible. Maybe when you're creating something, you use headings instead of using bullets or underline. Use, as I mentioned, alternative text for images. These are pretty basic. We also have document formatting guidelines online for our faculty to use. One thing that we really stress to faculty is that they search for accessible multimedia elements. We've had some faculty here where when they're asked, well, what do you do if you don't have a video that's captioned that you're using? And they'll say, I don't use videos that don't have captions. And the other thing you can do is that I found, I was teaching a class on assistive technology, and I found out that, it's kind of sad, but one of the products, I had a student with a hearing impairment in my class, and I didn't have a product I wanted students to see, and the accessibility company had a video of the product, how to use it, and there was no captions, which is sad for an assistive technology company. But I contacted them and I asked them, if they had the ability to do that. They asked me which one do I want done first, and they did it for me. It was kind of odd that they hadn't thought about it, but you can't assume that everybody, will think about it. So make sure that you ask, and you never know what can happen. The next category we have, the middle pillar, is called proactive requests. And these pretty much deal with our legacy courses. UCF has been doing online courses for almost 20 years. So we have a lot of faculty out there. We have a lot of courses out there. Some people we don't hear from anymore, so they may not be updated on what's going on. So we offer this proactive requests where they can come back and get help and learn how to redesign their courses. We help them figure out how to add their own content, or they've been out there adding their own content because now it's very easy to add media. So we try to make sure that they know how to either look for media that's accessible or create accessible media. We also provide additional faculty development. We've created these things called faculty seminars and online teaching, and that's where we have it's a half-an-hour session where we have a faculty person and an instructional designer, and they work together to they take a topic and then they both discuss it, and we kind of make sure that there's accessibility included. We also do that with faculty multimedia workshop series where it's more of a workshop setting. So it might be a piece of software that we teach them how to use, but we always address how to make something accessible. We also, again, offer those accessibility course reviews, especially for these older courses. And we give them ideas for what to do, how they can make their courses more accessible. We have, in the past, we've had a usability checker. That's usually a student that we hire that will go through a course and make suggestions on how to make their courses accessible. They usually are someone that is proficient in the use of JAWS, which is the screen reader for of choice. I guess that's the best one. So we usually have them use that. We also have some new types of things that we provide for support. For those people that went through IDL so long ago, this course we created, IDL 7000, it will be premiering this fall. And it's to kind of catch up faculty on not only the services we offer, but also on accessibility for courses. The last one here Nancy has mentioned is called UDOIT. And John, we're kind of keeping that secret unless you've heard about it, but John is going to talk about it later. The IDL 7000, I see a question, is it online or face-to-face? We're going to actually have one face-to-face meeting, and then the rest of it is going to be online, and then we're going to offer, if they want to come in and do a showcase about their product, and accessibility is going to be included in that as well. The last category is immediate need, and those are really the students that need immediate access or accommodations. So that right now is probably the one that is flowing the easiest, because we're working directly with student accessibility services, and we have a process in place. Most of the things that we address are videos without captions, inaccessible PDF documents, and images without alternative text. Most of at least the videos without captions, that's a showstopper for some students. They can't access materials if they don't have captions. Excuse me. The last one is, part of that is the accommodation workflow that we were able to develop with our department and Student Accessibility Services and the faculty. We identified a coordinator from our side that will look into the courses and find out what needs to be made accessible. That person also works with Student Accessibility Services. We identified what CDL teams would work on those accommodations, like if captioning is needed, the Student Accessibility Services will create the transcript, and then our video department will create the captions and then put that together for the student. This is just a picture of our overall, it might be hard to see, but I don't think it's on our website, but if you're really interested, we could send that to you if you wanted, or we could attach it somehow to the PowerPoint. So I'm not going to go through this whole process, but this is what we came up with. It seems to be working pretty well overall. We've had, every once in a while we have to go back and revisit parts of it, but they let the faculty know about 3 weeks in advance they have a student with disability, and we have different forms. We have a Form B, that's for if someone can't see, and a Form D if someone can't hear, and addresses those different types of media that are in a course and what needs to be made accessible. And the reason we try to get the faculty to look through their course and make them aware that you do have videos without captions or you do have something else, because it would be easy for us to just fix it, but we need to know what they're using. They might add something later, or they might just go, well, it's already accessible, right? And they may not even know that it isn't. So we work closely with the faculty as well. So our overall goal really is to make that immediate need column smaller, the proactive request column smaller, like not as wide, and make universal design for learning the wide column, where we're doing that mostly so that the other things don't need to happen. And do you have any questions?
We do have a lot of questions that have been piling up here during your presentation. So the first one I'm going to start with is there enforcement for course assignments for online courses based on having passed the professional development?
Yeah. I know that it depends, I think, on the place where you work. For us at UCF, the faculty are totally in charge of the materials they put into the course. We do have the provost letter that helps. It helps a lot, actually. It goes out every fall, as Nancy said. And so faculty, a part of it is faculty weren't as aware of it as they have been. So a lot of it is educating faculty. I think we can enforce it when we have a student that needs an accommodation, but we can't go around and police. We have like thousands and thousands and thousands of classes, so we can't go around and police all the classes, but that's why we try to educate faculty, and then we provide accommodations as soon as they're needed.
So I think the question was, and reframe this a little bit, I might have not said it correctly. Are faculty limited in the courses they're assigned to if they have not taken your training yet?
Cannot teach online if they, like a blended or totally online class, if they did not take the professional development course. That is tied to a SACS accreditation, so they have to take it before they teach online. Otherwise, yeah, they cannot.
Perfect. So Russ raised the question, what about experienced faculty? How do you get them to engage in the professional development? Now it sounds like they wouldn't be allowed to teach online if they haven't. So it sounds like that is a required training. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Great.
Oh, that's why. Well, that's kind of why we created the IDL 7000, was to try to reach out to faculty that had been trained to teach online, but 20 years ago, you know, there's a lot has changed, including accessibility, and we actually are. We kind of like send out a survey, and we try to reach out to them. Each person that went through IDL is assigned an instructional designer. So we have instructional designers reach out to them and say, hey, do you want to take this course?
We also have the consultations with instructional designers and the seminars.
Yeah, we also do consultations with them, and we provide those seminars. So we do a lot of outreach to faculty.
Great. I'm getting lost in the sea of questions. There are a lot of technical questions surrounding YouTube and other videos that your instructors use in the courses. I saw one asking how you do captioning for pre-2011 YouTubes and how you assure that all of your materials use that. I saw one suggestion of amara.com. Do you have other suggestions for how people might add the captions to their course materials?
I'll take this one. In our workflow, if the YouTube video does not have captions and it's required in a course for a student that has deaf, hard of hearing, or basically that it will be transcribed. I know it's not a best case scenario, but that's what we do right now. The other thing is you can try and contact the owner of the video, and then also if because the automatic captions aren't enough, there is a website out there. It's actually called No More Craptions. It was developed by a programmer that will take the automatic captions and allow you to clean them up, but it doesn't send it back to the video. But that's how we currently handle it. Like I said, it's not best case, but that's what we do right now.
Great. Now I'll ask one more question, and then we'll move on, and we'll come back to questions later in the presentation. Someone asked, have you had any luck with getting publishers to provide the materials in an accessible format when they're brought with the course materials?
That's one thing that we educate our faculty on when talking to publisher reps to ask that question, is the content accessible? especially to ask those questions to the publishers. Definitely, if they're going to use that content and it's not captioned, then the faculty at that point kind of has the decision whether to use the content or not. So hopefully accessibility can be a deal breaker for them, and I think that's one of the main ways that publishers will respond if their materials aren't being adopted. Us as an institution have not reached out to individual publishers, but with our colleagues at the library, when they look at collections and licensing multimedia content, that is in the top 5 on the list. We do license 3 different video collections here, and they are all closed captioned.
Great. John, at this point, we'll turn it over to you to start through the rest of your presentation.
Thank you very much. So just in the chat box, has anybody here heard about UDOIT or currently using UDOIT? Okay. Heard about it in StructureCon, yep. Yeah. Okay. So UDOIT, I'll first I'll put it right out there. UDOIT is only for the Instructure Canvas platform. So if you're on Blackboard or Desire to Learn or Moodle, unfortunately you can't use it at this point. UDOIT stands for, it's pronounced UDOIT, just like in the top of the slide, and it stands for the Universal Design Online Content Insertion Tool. We always joke around and say the C is silent, because that wouldn't have been a good acronym. So it is an LTI that plugs into your course, and it basically goes through all the HTML content in the course. So we can scan HTML files, or in Canvas you have a WYSIWYG interface. What you see is what you get. And you can type in text, links, so on and so forth, but it generates HTML in the background. So basically that's what UDOIT looks through. It does not look through PDFs, PowerPoints, Word documents, so on and so forth. We have gotten a lot of interest when we've talked about this, about PDFs, but that's not our main focus right now. Yes, we did develop UDOIT. We got a grant from Instructure. Jacob Bates and Karen Tinsley-Kim, both in our unit, applied for a grant, a Canvas grant from Instructure, and we received $10,000 to develop it. It took about a little over a year to develop, and we released it back to our faculty back in May. And it is also an open source product. And you can find out all of the information, where to download it, the technical information is at the website here listed on the slide. So with the HTML content, we use the we go against the WCAG 2.0 standards. So as I always say in the spiel, so our particular faculty, we're not making this stuff up. We're actually using adopted standards for accessibility. So in the Canvas interface, there is a navigation menu on the bottom left, and that's where UDOIT lives. So it is pushed to all of our Canvas sections for the semester, for each term. So when faculty click the UDOIT button, they get brought to this page. We have a nice asking for feedback, and they'll have 2 different options. They can scan the course right down here, or you can view old reports. So it'll keep every time that it scanned the course, so you can check to see if your course accessibility has been improving over time. One of the main goals of this tool is to present a very faculty-friendly facing, I would say not spin, but introduction to accessibility. So we spent a lot of time on the verbiage. So in this button, what does UDOIT look for? This is where we had to bring out some of the technical jargon. Because we had a command line version of this tool that gave a lot of technical jargon back to our faculty, and they were like, I don't know what to do with this, what does this mean? So this is actually a lot of time went in by Nancy, Kathleen, and I, and others on the team to actually go through and talk about the language. So on the screen, what does UDOIT look for? You'll see the red up at the top is errors and then suggestions. And I believe the next slide, it's a closer look. We divided the two screens into errors. This is what's under, actually more info, that's actually the next slide. We run about a series of about 20 to 25 different checks on a course. So the errors are divided into items you should fix right away, and then suggestions are things to consider, and UDOIT can't tell what context this issue is in, because it may be perfectly fine the way it is, since this is a program. We can't determine everything. So for instance, our most common things we talk about are alt text, links that should contain text, table headers, table headers, color contrast, and closed captioning. So under more info, for instance, the alternative text should not be the image file name. So in the Canvas system, when you insert an image into a page, the default behavior is to use the image name as the text, or as the image name as the alt text. So it doesn't make any sense if it's just a random ing something 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 number that you just upload from your camera. So UDOIT will go and detect that, and then this brief description about why alternative text is important. Also, we link out to our own resources on alternative text and identify the WCAG standards. And then down at the bottom, if faculty members are more technical in nature, they can see the example of the HTML, what is not a good example and what is a good example. So after UDOIT scans a course, it'll come out with a report, and this is a screenshot from a report. We break it up into the different tools of Canvas. We scan the announcements, pages, which is where most of the course content lives, files, but only for HTML files, discussions, assignments, so on and so forth. So they'll see the total number of issues, 7 pages out of 12 pages in this particular course, and it took about 5 seconds to scan. So on a normal course, it'll take about 45 seconds to a minute to scan. And then you'll see over here on the right how many errors and how many suggestions that it had. So let's go ahead and take a look at one. So for instance, this is one on one instance on one page. The page had 8 total errors, but we're looking at the alternative text should not be the file name. So it'll actually show the source of the image, so that's actually on the next slide. And then we came up with something called You Fix It. So has anybody ever seen the movie Wreck-It Ralph? I always use this analogy. With this, a character in Wreck-It Ralph is somebody called Fix-It Felix. So no matter however, however much Ralph wrecks, there's a guy that comes around and fixes it. So there's not really a point of telling faculty, hey, this is what's wrong, but there's not an easy way to fix it, because if it was easy in the first place, they would have done it. So, so we developed the concept of You Fix It. So it's available on most of our tests right now. It's not available on all of them at the moment, but we'll walk you through it. So when you click it, right underneath for alternative text, the faculty member is able to type in new alternative text, hit submit, and it goes back and fixes it. So actually, I didn't have a screenshot of actually viewing the source. I don't think. I apologize for that. So yep, they go back, hit submit, and it's all fixed. So I'm going to turn it back to Nancy, and then we'll be back to answer some questions about UDOIT at the end of the presentation.
Okay, so some benefits we found of our overall initiative, one, the model that Kathleen was talking about and all the other things that we're doing, like professional development and UDOIT, et cetera, is that we found that we're more efficient in meeting the needs of students with disabilities. And also we have improved communication across our campus, as I was saying earlier, that we have regular meetings within the Center for Distributed Learning of all the key players that work with the accessibility initiative within our unit. And we also have periodic meetings with all the units across the campus who support faculty, such as our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, our Student Accessibility Services Office, our Office of Instructional Resources, and our office as well. And the great benefits of those meetings is that we identify key problem areas, or potential problem areas. For example, one of these units that I mentioned is going to be meeting with faculty, and they're going to be hearing about different types of multimedia, for example, that faculty are using in their class, and then they'll pass it on to us, and we can try those out, test them, see if there's any potential accessibility issues, and try to encourage faculty to use something else in some cases. All of these meetings have also helped improve our processes as well as our overall model that Kathleen talked about, and increase the efficiency of meeting the needs of students with disabilities. And also, one of the biggest bonuses is that we have an increased faculty awareness of accessibility and making sure, and as well as universal design for learning, I should say. And that comes about through our professional development. That provost letter that we spoke of earlier, someone in the chat asked about the provost letter. There's actually a link to that in the resources section of this PowerPoint, which is coming up. And again, that letter comes out once a year in the fall, and the provost identifies key people to help faculty make their courses accessible, or units, I should say, on campus like us, to Center for Distributed Learning, the Student Accessibility Services Office, and Faculty Center, but also reminds faculty of their responsibility to make their materials accessible. Also, UDOIT has helped with faculty awareness. I don't know if John mentioned this, but that link inside is put inside every single Canvas course, and faculty have the option to click on it and run the UDOIT report at any time, and we offer support if they are not sure what to do with those reports once they receive them. So that has been a great asset to us, as well as making faculty more aware and helping with that reaching out that Kathleen talked about. And then just overall increasing our overall online accessibility here at the campus. And one of the things we wanted to be sure to touch on is our lessons learned. One thing we found was key here, and we started spinning our wheels trying to find out what the best plan was to make sure we were meeting the needs as our online courses grew and the amount of accessibility needs grew, is that identifying that key person within our unit was key, someone who helped coordinate all of our efforts within our unit. Also, meeting as a group is we found is very key, both internally and across campus, and at those meetings to revisit those processes periodically, to make sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone's interpreting the processes the same way. And that is true for everyone, whether they've been there a long time or not, but also especially when there's been some change in staff. That's also a key important feature, to revisit those processes that you've put in place. Also, Kathleen talked upon the 30-minute professional development sessions that we offer, that we always try to incorporate accessibility somewhere, slip it in there somewhere in the professional development, because faculty members have said to us as we polled them that they can't always give us an hour, but usually they can give us 30 minutes, and we try to always stream those so they can watch them remotely if they need to, and they're recorded and so they can watch them later. Also providing online resources, just-in-time resources for them on our website that they can access anytime. That has been key as well. Resources such as how to create accessible pages, what would be some resources on tools that we would recommend for captioning, and et cetera. I'm trying to think of some others. Let's see what else. I saw a few questions myself while I was scanning through while John was talking. One of the things that Susan Rent suggested, brought up the question and answered it, I think. Well, how do you handle student presentations? And I love her response. She said that she actually has students create their own YouTube channel and upload them and caption their own videos or whatever the presentation might be on YouTube. I think that was a great response, a great answer. Also, Shannon from University of Milwaukee gave a great resource about action and tutorial from PepNet. You'll see that in the chat area for creating captions offline. And I addressed the Provost question 1. I think there might have been a few more questions, though. And we'll all be here to answer those.
Fantastic. We identified one of the questions I was going to ask you, and already went through that, so that is fantastic. Great. The next question I was going to bring forward from the chat log is from Bruce Kelly, and he asked about what about students who aren't pre-registered with your Accessibility Services office in advance? How do you accommodate for those students?
I'm not sure what you mean by advance. One of the things with students with disabilities at our institution, they can register with the office at any point in the semester. So we can get these requests, anytime during the semester. So if that's the case, we just work together, we scramble, and we do what needs to be done to make those courses accessible as quickly as possible. But a lot of times students will come to the university and they don't want to register with the Office of Student Accessibility Services. They want to do it on their own. They don't want what they might call the stigma of being registered there, and decide to try, but realize they might need a little bit of extra assistance or extra time on the tests and stuff, or captioning on videos. So we just work with them at whenever they decide they're registering, then we put things in place to make those materials accessible as quickly as possible. But we can't control when they register. We always try to be proactive and send those letters out. The Student Accessibility Services Office sends those letters out. They try to at least 4 weeks prior to the course starting, but again, with drop out and students changing classes and majors, we can't control that, so it happens throughout the semester. I hope that answers the question. I think I might have missed the part about students that don't register. Did I answer that? I just want to be clear, make sure I'm clear on that one.
I feel like you did answer that. There's a follow-up question that asks, how do you handle proactive requests? So those that are not immediate needs, do you guys create a priority queue?
A lot of those proactive requests come out of the professional development activities that they participate in, as well as UDOIT meetings when they get that report and they're not sure what to do with it, as well as meetings with their instructional designer. So their instructional designers, they'll either reach out to their instructional designers for assistance, or their instructional designer may reach out to them and offer assistance with their course. May be looking in their course for whatever reason, if there's a question about something being made accessible. And the faculty member and ID will work together in coming up with a plan and coordinating some efforts for long term. That's the goal. That's what we try to do.
Great. So I have one last question, and then we'll turn things back over to Megan. Catherine asked, have you surveyed faculty to identify barriers they see to implementing the universal design for learning? for the UDOIT?
No, we haven't done any specific surveys for asking faculty about UDL, but during our professional development program, IDL 6543, we do receive comments about our thank you for including UDL and so on and so forth. The feedback for UDOIT, we've had the form up there, but we haven't gotten many responses. However, presentations at the university and also working with individual faculty, the reception of UDOIT has been very, very positive.
Fantastic. And with that, I'm going to turn us back over to Megan Raymond, who will close us up for this session. Thank you again so much to the team at UCF, Kathleen, John, and Nancy. This has been a wonderful resource and will continue to serve as a great resource for our members.
Great, thank you, Callie. I wanted to also thank Nancy, Kathleen, and John for this wonderful presentation. I think the archive will be beneficial to those that weren't here today, so when I send you out the link, please feel free to share that with your networks. We are doing quite a bit on accessibility at the annual meeting in November 11th to the 13th in Denver. So visit the website for the program and more details. That is open to members and non-members. If you're not a WCET member, do consider joining our organization and continuing the good work that we do. We have several webcasts that are coming up, and I won't run through them all, but do visit our website and you can get the information about all these upcoming webcasts. We have one more in the accessibility series for September, and then in October we'll kick off our EdTech series, including a Google Hangout on October 6th. Additional information, I will be sending out the recording, the slides, and a list of the resources that were shared today. Again, thank you to Blackboard Collaborate for making the platform available. Thank you to WCET supporting members, WCET annual sponsors that underwrite our events and programs, and thank you again to our presenters. And thank you for the active discussion. This was a wonderful discussion that we had today, lots of great questions. As I mentioned, if we did not get to all of your questions, I'll share those with our presenters and have them provide written responses. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you on the next WCET webcast on the 29th.